there are various muscles involved in the process of mastication. Then there are the teeth. Okay, and in addition to the teeth, there are some joints involved in the process of mastication. So all these structures which are responsible for the process of mastication, we call them as the masticatory apparatus. So masticatory apparatus is nothing. It is the structures or components of mastication. That means the components which helps in the process of mastication. So there are basically three components that helps in the process of mastication. One is the skeletal element, that is the teeth, all of us know, which actually helps in grinding the food. Then for the process of grinding to take place, actually there should be some involvement of some movable joint, isn't it? And as a result, in the process of mastication, there is involvement of one joint, and that joint is called as the temporomandibular articulation. So remember, this temporomandibular articulation is the only movable joint in the skull. Okay. Remaining all the other joints of the skull, like the internasal, frontonasal, or nasomaxillary, whatever joint you say, so they are mostly immovable, or they are movable to some very less extent. But this temporomandibular articulation, it is a highly mobile joint. Okay, so you know the joints, they are classified based on their movement as synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis, and diarthrosis. So diarthrosis are those joints which are highly movable. Okay, they show various types of movement. So remember, temporomandibular articulation is a diarthrosis, and it is the only diarthrosis present in the skull. Okay, and all of us know, like this temporomandibular articulation, it is formed between the condyles of the squamous temporal, that is the upper part of the squamous temporal will be there, and there will be the condyles of the mandible. So what you see here, this is the condyle of the mandible. So this condyle of the mandible will articulate with the condyle of the squamous temporal bone, okay, to form the temporomandibular articulation. Okay, now there is a joint now. Okay, so now to help in the process of movement of this joint, there will be involvement of some muscles, and those muscles actually we call them as masticatory muscles. Okay, so in today's class, basically, I'll be discussing only the, I will discussing the masticatory muscles. Okay, so the masticatory muscles, if we see strictly when we try to define the masticatory muscles, we say the masticatory muscles are located in and around the mandible. Okay, they will not be located here somewhere near the nasal bone or somewhere. So they will be always in and around the mandible. So in this area, you will find the masticatory muscles. Okay, and what they does, they helps in the process of mastication by elevating or depressing the lower jaw. Okay, try to remember, they will elevate or they will depress which jaw? The lower jaw. That means in the formation of temporomandibular articulation, the lower jaw, that is the mandible, is only the movable part. Okay, whereas this upper jaw is immobile. Similar is in case of human being also. So in your case, if you observe closely, you will find whenever you open your mouth, your lower jaw comes down. Okay, when you close your mouth, your lower jaw goes up. Your upper jaw is always fixed. Okay, so these masticatory muscles, what they does, they helps in opening and closing of the mouth by elevating or depressing the lower jaw, not the upper jaw. That means for all these masticatory muscles that I'll be discussing later on, so these masticatory muscles will have their origin in the upper jaw and they will have their insertions in the lower jaw, because the point of insertion is always movable. Okay, so remember, point of insertion is movable. So for masticatory muscles, the insertion will be always on the mandible and origin will be on the upper jaw in various part of the upper jaws. Now, the masticatory muscles, if you see, they are actually 5 in number. Namely, the masseter muscle, temporalis muscle, pterygoideus medialis muscle, pterygoideus lateralis muscle, and digastricus muscle. So there are 5 masticatory muscles. Okay, but you see, in the process of mastication, like various muscles are involved. Like you say, in the lateral wall of the oral cavity, that is in the cheek region, you have the buccinator muscle. Okay, so this buccinator muscle also help in pushing the food towards the teeth. Okay, but we do not consider the buccinator muscles as a masticatory muscle. Similarly, the tongue, if you see, the tongue also helps in pushing the food towards the teeth. Okay, so as a result, the tongue also helps in the process of mastication, but we do not consider the tongue as a masticatory organ or a masticatory muscle. Not a masticatory organ, rather it is a masticatory organ, but it is not a masticatory muscle. It is not made up of masticatory muscle. Because you see, strictly when we say masticatory muscle, this masticatory muscle should help in the movement of the lower jaw. Here I have written, okay, so they helps in the process of mastication by elevating and depressing the lower jaw. Okay, so there may be various muscles on the wall of the oral cavity which will push the food towards the teeth, but those muscles are not involved in the movement of the jaw or movement of the lower jaw. So we don't consider them as masticatory muscles. So to be masticatory muscles, they should always help in the process of mastication by elevating or depressing the lower jaw. So this point you have to remember. Otherwise, when you study the muscles of the facial region, you will find various muscles that helps in the process of mastication. So that may confuse you and you may think they are also masticatory muscles. But you have to know, to be masticatory muscle, it should elevate or depress the lower jaw. Okay, so these masticatory muscles, as I told, they are 5 in number: masseter, temporalis, pterygoideus medialis, pterygoideus lateralis, and digastricus. Now, among these 5 muscles, the first 4 muscles, they have a common origin. That means the first 4 muscles, that is the masseter, temporalis, pterygoideus medialis, and pterygoideus.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, someone is trying to enter the class. Can you please accept her proposal? Thank you, sir.
1 minute. Where is it? Actually, auto admission is allowed. I think no one is waiting here. I think they have entered already. Ask your friend whether he or she could enter. Entered or not?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, because no one is waiting here actually. Huh? So I'm coming back here again. So the among these 5 muscles, the first 4 muscles, they have a common origin. That means these 4 muscles, they originate from the first branchial arc. So branchial arc, like embryology classes started over for this course?
No,
not yet. Have you heard of pharyngeal pouches and branchial arc in your intermediate? Have you heard of it? No.
No, sir.
Okay, so I will not go into detail about it because this thing will be taught later on. For the time being, just you remember, out of these 5 muscles, the first 4, that is masseter, temporalis, pterygoideus medialis, and pterygoideus lateralis, they are derived from the first branchial arc. In addition to that, these 4 muscles, they are supplied by the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. And third point I forgot to write here, one more common point is there. These 4 muscles, they actually helps in elevating or lifting the upper jaw. Okay, so they actually elevates the upper jaw, and to some extent they also helps in the lateral and forward movement of the upper jaw, but some of them will help in lateral movement, some of them will help in forward movement of the lower jaw, but all of them will always help in the elevation of the lower jaw. Okay, but the 5th muscle, the digastricus, if you see, its origin is different. It originates from the second branchial arc. Okay, the first 4 originates from the first branchial arc, whereas the 5th muscle, that is the digastricus muscle, it originates from the second branchial arc. In addition to that, the innervation, if you see, this muscle will be innervated, or it will, the nerve that supplies these muscles are two in number. That is the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve and also facial nerve. In addition to that, this digastricus muscle, it depresses the lower jaw. Okay, whereas the other four muscles, they primarily elevates the upper jaw, whereas the digastricus, it depresses the lower jaw. That means it helps in opening the mouth, whereas the other four muscles, they help in closing the mouth. That's why in some book, again, this digastricus muscle is also not considered as a masticatory muscle, because its origin and function is different from the remaining four. But in most books, you'll find the digastricus is also included within the masticatory muscle. So for today's class, I will consider all these five as the masticatory muscle. So don't confuse if someone says only there is four. Okay, if someone says four, then you can say the fifth digastricus, why it is not included? Some may ask you, then you should say that because the digastricus is a depressor muscle. It opens, it depresses the lower jaw. Whereas the other four muscles, they elevates they lifts the upper jaw. Because of that difference, sometimes the digastricus is not considered as a masticatory muscle. But for this course, we will consider all these five as masticatory muscles. Okay, so they are five in number. Remember their name: masseter, temporalis, pterygoideus medialis, pterygoideus lateralis, and digastricus muscle. Okay. Now let us discuss the muscles one by one. Just 1 minute. Good morning, madam. Madam, what class do you see? I think all of you phone is on. All of you sir phone koi madam. ठीक है सर. Okay, so let's discuss the muscles one by one here again. The first muscle that I am going to discuss is the masseter muscle. Okay, the masseter muscle I have labeled here. So this muscle, this large muscle, this broad muscle here, this is the masseter muscle. Okay, so this picture what you see now, so this is the picture of the head and neck region of a cattle or cow. Okay, here after removing the skin and fascia, you will find these muscles, various muscles are there. Okay, so these muscles will not go in detail of these muscles. Okay, later on in subsequent classes, we'll be discussing about them. But for the time being, for today's class, we'll be discussing mainly these masticatory muscles. So one of the masticatory muscles which is seen on the superficial layer is the masseter. So this is the masseter muscle. You see this large muscle. So this masseter muscle, it is a broad muscle and it is a multipennate muscle. I hope you understand the different types of muscle has been taught: unipennate, bipennate, multipennate. Okay, so the masseter muscle is a multipennate muscle, and as I told earlier, it is derived from the first branchial arc. And this muscle is mainly found on the lateral aspect of the border part of the ramus of the mandible. Now, if you see here, so this is the ramus of the mandible. So this is the wider or border part of the ramus of the mandible. Okay, so this is the lateral surface. The opposite surface will be the medial surface. So this masseter muscle actually you find in this region. Okay, it is found here mainly on the lateral part of the border part of the ramus of the mandible. So this area. So here you will find the masseter. So this is the masseter muscle. And this masseter muscle, it is the principal muscle of mastication. So the main muscle of mastication is the masseter muscle. Now let's see what is the origin of this muscle, what is the insertion, and what is its function. Okay, the origin, if you see, the masseter muscle, it originates from three areas. It originates from the zygomatic arc, from the facial crest, and the facial tuberosity. So here I have labeled. So this is the zygomatic arc, and this is the facial tuberosity. Now connecting the zygomatic arc and facial tuberosity, there will be one crest here, or there will be one ridge-like structure, and that crest is called as the facial crest. That means the origin of the masseter muscle is from the zygomatic arc, facial crest, and facial tuberosity. So these area will give origin to the masseter muscle. That is from the upper jaw it will arise. And where is its insertion? The insertion is on the vertical part of the mandible. So this is the vertical part of the mandible. So where on the vertical part? On the lateral surface and also on the posterior border. That means the muscle will originate from this area. It will go downward and backward and will insert on the lateral surface and also on the posterior border of the mandible. Then what is the function of this muscle? Okay, now as we know, the masseter muscle, they are two in number. So what you are seeing here, this is the left side masseter muscle. The right side masseter muscle is not visible, it is on the other side. So this masseter muscle, now if you see here, in this part, the central portion of the masseter muscle has been cut. Okay, so here you see the origin of the masseter muscle, and here you can see the insertion of the masseter muscle. And this white structure that you see here, so this is the vertical ramus of the mandible. And this yellow lobulated structure that you see, so these are the salivary gland. Okay, so this is the buccal gland. Okay, then you will have the sublingual gland. So this is the parotid gland. So like the different salivary glands will be there. So these are glands. These blue structures indicates the vein. The yellow structures indicates the nerve. And the red structure that we see, so those are the arteries. So red is artery, blue is vein, yellow is nerve. Got it? So here in this picture, what you see the origin and insertion of the masseter muscle. Now, if you see the action, now, when the two masseter muscles, that is the right and left masseter muscle, act together, then what happens is that it moves the mandible or the lower jaw forward and upward. Because you see, this is origin is here. So this area is fixed. This is insertion. So this is movable. So when the muscle will contract, then this mandible will be pulled forward, okay, and also upward. That's why you see when the two muscles act together, it will pull the mandible forward and upward. But if the masseter muscle of one side acts, that is, if it acts singly, that is, if the right or left masseter muscle is only contracting, then what will happen? There will be lateral movement of the lower jaw. Okay, the lower jaw will be moving right to left. Okay, and that in turn will help in grinding the food. And that is a very important, that in case of cattle, you will find this type of movement. A wide degree of grinding movement is seen in case of cattle. Okay, because they grind the grass between their teeth. And to grind that grass, there will be, suppose the left side masseter will first contract, then it will get relaxed, the right will contract, then again the left, right, like that it will go on contracting and relaxing. As a result, the lower jaw, that is the mandible, will move from the right to left, like that it will go on moving, and it will help in grinding the food. But if the two masseter, they act together, then what will happen? The mandible will be moved forward and upward. Then comes the next muscle, that is the temporalis muscle. So from the name itself, it implies, so this temporalis muscle, it is mainly found in the temporal fossa region. Now in this dry skull, if you see this area below the horn, this is the temporal fossa. So in this temporal fossa region, the main muscle that fills this temporal fossa region is the temporalis muscle. Okay, so this is temporal fossa. Here you have the temporalis muscle. And this temporalis muscle, where from it is originated, it is derived from the first branchial arm. Okay, now the temporalis muscle, the origin, if you see, it is from the temporal crest and the rough part of the temporal fossa. Now, if you see here, this crest here, so this is the temporal crest. If you remember, I told you here, so above the temporal crest, you will have the parietal crest. Okay, so but not from the parietal crest, from the temporal crest region it will arise. From the temporal crest and also from the rough area of the temporal fossa. From there it will arise, and where it will insert? It will insert on the coronoid process of the mandible. So on the vertical ramus of the mandible, on the upper part, you find three structures: condyle, then mandibular knots, and one process here that is called the coronoid process. That means this muscle, it will originate from this area and it will go forward and will insert on the coronoid process of the mandible. Okay, and that muscle, the temporalis muscle, what it does when it contracts, what will happen? So this mandible, it will be pulled, this coronoid process will be pulled backward, isn't it? So when the muscle, it will be contracting, this is the point of insertion, so it will be pulled backward. As a result, what will happen? The mandible will get raised. Okay, that means it will help him elevating the mandible. Okay, so that temporalis muscle is shown here. So this is the temporalis muscle. Now you see in this picture, the left bottom picture, if you see here, you can see the ear, then you can see the horn. Let me show you this picture in another one. Here you see. So this is the superficial layer. Okay, so here you have the ear, this is the horn. So this is the temporal fossa region. Now, initially what you see, the ear, if you remember, the ear has got two cartilage. It has one auricular cartilage and one scutiform cartilage. This white structure that we see here, this is the scutiform cartilage. Okay, now there are various muscles inserting to this scutiform cartilage. So those muscles, like you'll have the frontoscutularis, then you will have the scuto-auricular muscle, scutocervical muscle. Okay, like the different muscles will be there. So those muscles are shown here. So this is the scutiform cartilage. Now, to show that or to demonstrate the temporalis muscle, actually, we'll have to dissect in this area. We'll have to remove the scutiform cartilage and all the muscle attached to the scutiform cartilage. Then only we can see the temporalis muscle. Now, here, if you see in this picture, this is the temporalis muscle. This white structure that you see here, this is the scutiform cartilage. So here, the scutiform cartilage has been cut, and the muscle attached to the scutiform cartilage has been removed to show you the temporalis muscle. So this is temporalis muscle. So remember, the temporalis muscle is not superficial, rather it is deeply located. Okay, so this is temporalis muscle. Then comes the next muscle, that is the pterygoideus medialis. So the pterygoideus medialis muscle, it is mainly seen on the medial part of the vertical ramus. Any problem? Someone's microphone is on, I think. Okay, pterygoideus medialis muscle, it is seen on the medial part of the vertical ramus. Now in this picture, if you see, the mandible has been removed. Now you see, this is the temporalis muscle. So here the coronoid process of the mandible was there. So that has been removed. Okay, scutiform cartilage is also removed. Okay, now when we take out the mandible, then only you can see the pterygoideus medialis. So this large muscle you can see here. So this is pterygoideus medialis muscle. Now you see this image. In this image, this white muscle that you see here. Okay, so this is masseter muscle. Now to demonstrate the pterygoideus medialis muscle, you'll have to remove the masseter muscle. Then you'll have to remove the mandible. Okay, now once you remove the mandible, then on the medial side of the mandible, now you will find this large muscle. So this is called as pterygoideus medialis. Now associated with this muscle, you can find one yellow colored structure. So this is the lingual nerve, which goes and supplies the tongue. Okay, and this broken nerve that you see here, so this is part of the mandibular nerve, which will run inside the mandibular canal and will come out of the mental foramen. So this is pterygoideus medialis muscle. So remember, the pterygoideus medialis muscle, it is seen on the medial part of the vertical ramus. So to demonstrate this muscle, you will have to remove the mandible. Okay, and again, it is derived from the first branchial arch that we have discussed already. Now, the pterygoideus medialis muscle, its origin, if you see, it has two origins. One part of this muscle originates from the lateral face of the perpendicular part of palatine, and the other part originates from the pterygoid crest of the sphenoid. Now, this is the skull you see. You see the ventral part of the skull. So here, this red structure that you see, so this is the pterygoid crest of the presphenoid. Okay, now here you see, this is posterior nair. So on the lateral side of the posterior nair, we know there will be the palatine bone. The palatine bone has got two parts. It has a horizontal part. So this is horizontal part, and it has a vertical part. So this is the vertical part. So vertical part mainly forms the lateral wall of the posterior nair. Okay, and this is the maxillary hiatus region. Now, this pterygoideus medialis muscle, it will originate from two areas. One part will originate from the pterygoid crest and the other part will originate from the lateral surface. That means this is the vertical part. So here this is the medial surface. This side will be lateral surface. So one part will arise from the pterygoid crest. Other part will arise from the lateral face of the vertical part of the perpendicular plate of palatine. Okay, and insertion where? The insertion is on the medial face of the vertical ramus. So here you see this is the medial surface of the mandible. So this is mandibular symphysis. So what you are seeing the inner or medial surface of the left mandible. Okay, so here you have one foramen. This is the mandibular foramen. And the points of insertion is where? It is on the vertical ramus behind the mandibular foramen. That means in this area. Okay, in this area, the pterygoideus medialis muscle will insert. Origin is from two areas, from pterygoid crest and perpendicular part of palatine, and insertion is on the medial surface of the mandible behind the mandibular foramen. Then the pterygoideus medialis, the function of this muscle again. So this is again paired muscle. So together when they act, what will it will do? It will raise the mandible. That means you see this is pterygoideus medialis. The origin will be here on the upper jaw. Insertion is on the lower jaw. So when the muscle will contract, then this arrow is wrongly placed. When the muscle is contract, then the movement will be according to this arrow. Okay, so the mandible will be pulled upward. Okay, that's why when the two muscles act together, it will raise the mandible. So the arrow indicates the direction of force of the muscle. Okay, the muscles, when they contract, they will pull the mandible upward. As a result, the mandible will be raised. And if they act singly, just like the masseter, they will help in lateral movement, that is, in grinding the food. Then comes the fourth muscle that is called as the pterygoideus lateralis. Again, this is smaller than the first one and it is derived from the first branchial arc and is present on the upper part of the upper lateral part of the pterygoideus medialis. Now again you see this is pterygoideus medialis. On its upper lateral part you have another muscle here. So this muscle, this is called as pterygoideus lateralis. So to demonstrate the pterygoideus lateralis also you will have to remove the mandible. So here you can see three muscles of mastication. One is the temporalis, then the pterygoideus lateralis, pterygoideus medialis. Then masseter to some extent you can see here the four masticatory muscles can be seen. So this is the point of origin of masseter, the where my cursor is. So this is point of origin of masseter. So this is this muscle here. So this is pterygoideus lateralis. So it is smaller than the pterygoideus medialis and is present on the upper lateral part of the pterygoideus medialis. Origin of this muscle, if you see, it is again from the pterygoid process of the presphenoid. Okay, and the point of insertion will be on the neck, condyle and interarticular cartilage. So for that again I will refer back to this picture. So here if you see here, this area, so here this is the pterygoid crest, this is perpendicular part of palatine. In between them here you will have the pterygoid process of presphenoid. So from this area, from the pterygoid process of presphenoid, that means from this area, the pterygoideus lateralis will originate. Okay, and where is its insertion? Its insertion is on the neck, condyle and interarticular cartilage. That means if you see here, this is the condyle of the mandible. Okay, below this condyle, this narrow area, this is called as the neck of the mandible, neck of the condyle. Okay, then between you know the temporomandibular articulation that I talked about. So that is between the condyle of the mandible and the condyle of the squamous temporal. Now between the condyle of the mandible and condyle of the squamous temporal, there will be one interarticular cartilage or menisci will be there. Okay, and that interarticular cartilage from the medial surface of the interarticular cartilage, condyle and the neck of the condyle. So in this area, actually the pterygoideus lateralis muscle will insert. Okay, now you see pterygoideus lateralis, origin is from the pterygoid process and insertion is from the neck, condyle and interarticular cartilage. Now axon again, if you see, this is again wrongly directed. I'll just correct it. Yes, this way. So together, when these two muscles will act, they will draw the mandible forward, because you see the condyle, neck, and interarticular cartilage of the mandible will be here somewhere. Okay, and this is the muscle, the origin of the muscle will be here somewhere. So when this muscle contracts, so this will be the direction of contraction, the arrowhead. Okay, as a result, what will happen? The mandible will be drawn forward, because when the muscle contracts, this area of the mandible, it will be pulled forward. As a result, the mandible will be drawn forward. Okay, so pterygoideus lateralis, together they will draw the mandible forward, but singly they will draw the mandible in the opposite direction. That means if this is the left side pterygoideus lateralis, if this muscle contract, only this muscle contract, the right side pterygoideus lateralis, if does not contract, only the left side pterygoideus lateralis muscle contracts, then the mandible will be pulled towards the right side in the opposite direction. So that is about the pterygoideus lateralis. And the fifth masticatory muscle, that is the digastricus muscle. So this digastricus muscle, it is very, very important from examination point of view. So questions are being asked. Okay, so you have to remember the digastricus muscle, it is derived from the second brachial arc, and this muscle, it is a long muscle. Okay, the digastricus muscle is a very long muscle. It extends from the paramastoid process of the occipital bone to the medial face of the ventral border of the mandible. So here you see this long muscle that you can see here. So this is called as the digastricus muscle. Okay, so digastricus muscle is a peculiar muscle because this muscle has got two bellies. Gastric means what? Stomach. Stomach is also called as belly. Okay, so the digastricus muscle, actually it has got two bellies. One is the posterior belly and one is anterior. So this is the anterior belly and this is posterior belly. Posterior belly is also called as dorsal belly because it is on the upper part, and the anterior belly is also called as ventral belly. Okay, so two bellies are there, anterior and posterior, and these two bellies are in turn connected by a intermediate tendon. So this is the characteristic of the digastricus muscle. So remember, digastricus, from the name itself, two bellies. Gastric means belly, so the di means two. So this muscle has got two bellies, so it is called as digastricus. Okay, and these two bellies are anterior and posterior, and these anterior and posterior bellies are connected to each other by one tendon, that is the intermediate tendon. And it is a very long muscle extending from the paramastoid process. The paramastoid process will be here somewhere, and the mandible, the ventral border of the mandible will be here. So from paramastoid process to ventral border of the mandible, it will be extending. Okay, in addition to that, the anterior belly of the opposite side. So this is the anterior belly of left side. Similarly, you will have another anterior belly on the right side. Now the anterior belly of the opposite side, they will be connected to each other by a transverse band of connective tissue. Transversely directed band of connective tissue, and that transverse band of connective tissue is called as transverse mandibularis. Okay, so there will be one connective tissue band which will connect the two anterior bellies of the opposite side, and that connective tissue band is called as transverse mandibularis. Now if you see the digastricus muscle, its origin, as I told you, it is from the paramastoid process. Now in this skull, if you see this structure, this is paramastoid process. Okay, so from here it will originate and it will go downward and forward and will insert here on the medial surface. What you see here, this is lateral surface. That means it will be on the ventral border of the medial surface. So this will be the direction of the fibers. Okay, now again, let me turn it this way. So this will be the direction of this arrow, indicates the direction of movement, because this is the point of insertion and this is the point of origin. Origin is fixed, insertion is movable. So when this muscle, the digastricus muscle, contracts, then what will happen? So it is inserting at this part. So this area will contract because of the contraction of this muscle. This area will be pulled forward. So when this area pulled forward, then this area will go down. Okay, That means the mandible will get depressed. Okay, so as there will be pulling effect here, so this part will go down. So as a result, the action of the digastricus muscle is what? It depresses the mandible. That means it helps in opening the mandible. Okay, so this is the only depressor muscle of the mandible. All muscles of the mandible or all masticatory muscles, they help in elevating the mandible. They will help pulling the mandible upward or forward, or they will help in lateral movement. But there is only one muscle of mastication which helps in downward movement of the mandible, and that muscle is the digastricus muscle. Okay, with that I finish the muscles of mastication. So next 3 muscles I would like to discuss are the muscles of the tongue. Okay, so you see the tongue, it is a highly mobile structure. You can rotate your tongue, you can move your tongue in various directions. Okay, it is a highly mobile structure, and that movement of the tongue, it is like you can say it is a voluntary movement. It is not involuntary. You can willingly move your tongue to the right, to the left, to the top, to the bottom, or you can rotate it to some extent. You can not rotate actually, you can curve it to some extent. Okay, so as a result, you know, this tongue, it is a highly muscular organ, and it is mainly made up of what type of muscle? Skeletal muscle. Okay, so the tongue, though it is a visceral organ, but it is not made up of smooth muscle, but it is made up of skeletal muscle. Okay, now the skeletal muscles of the tongue, they are broadly divided into 2 groups, intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscle. So divided into 2 groups, intrinsic and extrinsic. Okay, so the intrinsic muscles they actually originate within the tongue and they insert within the tongue. So they do not have any insertion or origin outside the tongue. Okay, that means that you see the tongue will have an outer layer of mucous membrane. Okay, now within that mucous membrane, there will be some muscles. And those muscles are called as intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Okay, so these intrinsic muscles, they are found within the tongue and they form the bulk of the tongue. The majority of the tongue, the muscles of the tongue, they are all intrinsic muscles. Majority of them are intrinsic muscles. And these intrinsic muscles, they are oriented in different directions. Some are oriented longitudinally, some are oriented transversely, some are oriented perpendicularly, some are oriented obliquely. Okay, and these intrinsic muscles, they form bundles. Okay, so as a result, within the tongue, you will have bundles of intrinsic muscle going in different directions. And based on their direction, these intrinsic muscle bundles are classified into 3 main types: longitudinal fibers, which may be superficial and deep; transverse fiber, that means the fibers are going in a transverse direction; then perpendicular fibers, where they will be moving in a dorsoventral direction. Longitudinal means anterior posterior, transverse means right to left. So based on their direction of the fibers, the intrinsic muscles are classified as longitudinal, transverse and perpendicular. But the longitudinal again are divided into superficial and deep. That means some longitudinal muscles are near the mucous membrane and some are away from the mucous membrane, the deeper part of the tongue. Now, the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, they are 3 in number. Okay, and they are all paired. All the extrinsic muscles are paired, and you have 3 pairs of extrinsic muscles. And these extrinsic muscles, they will always have their origin outside the tongue. That means they will have their origin on the bones that are found around the tongue. That means one of them will arise from the mandible, 2 of them will arise from the hyoid bone. That means they have their origin outside the tongue, but they have their insertions within the tongue. That means you can say these extrinsic muscles from their bony point of origin will radiate or will move into the tongue and will get inserted on various intrinsic muscles. That means the intrinsic muscles of the tongue actually they act as a point of insertion for the extrinsic muscles. Okay, the extrinsic muscle from their origin will enter into the tongue, and in the tongue they will go in different directions and they will insert on the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. And these three pairs of extrinsic muscles are named in such a way that the first part of their name indicates the bone from which they originate. Okay, now if you see in this upper image here, so here I have labeled the three pairs of extrinsic muscles of the tongue, namely styloglossus, hyoglossus, and genioglossus. Okay, so in this name, glossus is common. Glossus means tongue. Okay, that means from the name itself, you know these muscles, they will go and insert on the tongue, so they are glossus. Now, the first part, that is stylo. Stylo means this muscle, it originates from the stylohyoid bone. The hyoid bone, if you remember, it has got different segments. It has basihyoid, it has stylohyoid, then it has keratohyoid, then it has thyrohyoid, then epihyoid. So different parts of the hyoid bones are there. Okay, so the styloglossus, from the name itself it implies, it originates from the styloid, mainly from the styloid process of the hyoid bone, and inserts where? Inserts on the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Similarly, the hyoglossus again from the name itself, hyo, that means again hyoid bone. That means you see the hyoid bone, because you see why we say this as hyoglossus, because it is not originating from a single segment of the hyoid bone, because this muscle, the hyoglossus, it originates from the basihyoid, then from the thyrohyoid. Okay, it has got various point of origin within the hyoid bone, so it is called as hyoglossus. Then genioglossus. So genioglossus is a muscle that originates from the mandible. Okay, genio means actually this word genio, no, it is derived from from Greek. It is a Greek word, genio. Greek or Latin, I forgot. It should be Greek, I think. So it is a Greek word, and in which genio means chin. Okay, genio means chin. So in this cross section, if you see, the genio means this area. This is the chin. Okay, so this muscle, it arises from the chin and it inserts on the tongue. So this is the tongue. So this is called a genioglossus muscle. Okay, whereas the hyoid bone will be here. In this area, you will have the hyoid bone. So you will have stylohyoid originating from here and going forward and inserting on the tongue. Hyoglossus you will have originating from the hyoid bone and inserting on the tongue. Okay, so extrinsic muscles are made up of three pairs of skeletal muscles which has their origin outside the tongue and insertion within the tongue, and they are named in such a way that the first part of the name indicates their bony point of origin. Okay, that means two of them from the hyoid bone and one from the mandible. So these three muscles, one by one, if you see, now here the first muscle is the styloglossus muscle. So it is a paired muscle, no doubt. You will have a right and left styloglossus muscle, and that muscle is long and slender, and it is mainly seen on the ventral lateral part of the tongue and extending from the root to the tip. Now if you see in this image, this muscle here, so this is the styloglossus. So this image, no, if you see here, so these are the two ramas of the mandible. So these are the two horizontal ramas of the mandible. That means you have cut the skull in this way. Okay, in a transverse section at the root of the tongue. At this level you have cut it this way. Okay, so you are finding two ramas of the mandible. Between the two ramas of the mandible, you are finding a cross section of the tongue. So this is the cross section this way. So on the cross section of the tongue, you see, you will have two styloglossus, then you will have hyoglossus, and you will have the genioglossus. So they are almost placed parallel to each other. Okay, so this is their in situ position on a cross section of it. This is a cross section of the tongue. Now they will be extending from the root to the tip of the tongue. Now if you see here, this area is the root of the tongue, this is tip of the tongue. That means this styloglossus muscle will be extending from the root to the tip. Throughout the tongue you will find this muscle. And the origin of the muscle is from the rostral end of the stylohyoid. Now if you see, this is the hyoid bone. So for this hyoid bone, this is this long part. This is the stylohyoid. So the origin is from here, from the rostral, that is from the anterior part of the stylohyoid bone, and it will insert by fusing with halo from the opposite side. That means you have one stylohyoid glossus here, another styloglossus here. Both of them will go and unite together near the tip of the tongue. Okay, and also they will give fibers which will go and insert on the intrinsic muscle. So for this muscle, you have 2 points of insertion. It will blend with its fellow from the opposite side and near the tip of the tongue, and also it will blend with the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Now action, if you see together, these two muscles, when they act together, it will retract the tongue. That means it will bring the tongue inside. Suppose you put your tongue outside the oral cavity. Now to bring back the tongue inside the oral cavity, which muscle will get activated? The styloglossus. So it helps in retracting the tongue. Then singly, if you see, if a single side styloglossus act, then it will draw the apex towards the lateral side. Suppose this is the left side styloglossus. If this muscle is activated, then the tip of the tongue will be turned towards the left side. If the right one is activated, then it will turn the tip to the right side. Then the third one, it is the hyoglossus muscle. So the hyoglossus, here this is the hyoglossus. So it is a wide flat muscle placed lateral to the base of the tongue. So this area is the base of the tongue. So it is placed lateral to the base of the tongue, and inside the tongue, the fibers from this muscle, they are directed rostrally, that means anteriorly, dorsally, and medially. And there, after diverting to the different directions or dispersing to the different direction, they will blend with the intrinsic muscles. Origin of this muscle, if you see, it is from the basihyoid, lingual process, and thyrohyoid. So here, if you see, this is the lingual process. Here you will have the basihyoid, and this is the thyroid process. From this area, it will have origin. So it is called hyoglossus. Okay. Had it originated from a single segment of the hyoid bone, then it would have been called a single, like epiglossus or keratoglossus, like that the name would have been. But as you can see, it has origin at different segments of the hyoid bone. So as a result, it is called as hyoglossus. That is basihyoid, lingual process, and thyrohyoid. Insertion, again, it is inserted on the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Okay, and what does it does? It helps in retracting and depressing the tongue. Okay, it helps in retracting and depressing the tongue. And the last muscle that I'm going to discuss is the genioglossus. So the genioglossus, this is the genioglossus. So it is a flat fan-shaped muscle parallel to the median plane. Median plane means the center. So this is the central area. So it is just near the median plane of the tongue, and these two muscles are close to each other, but they are not in contact with each other, and they are separated by a layer of connective tissue that is called as the septum linguae. That means here you have a layer of connective tissue called as septum linguae. And inside the tongue, again, the fibers from this muscle, they will spread caudally, dorsally, rostrally, and blend with the intrinsic muscles. Origin, as I told earlier, or not paramastoid process. So this is, origin is from the near the mandibular symphysis. Okay, so the origin will be caudal to you, right? Caudal to the mandibular symphysis. Now, if you see, this is the mandible. So here you have a mandibular symphysis. So from the caudal aspect of the mandibular symphysis, this muscle will originate. Okay, and where it will insert? It will insert on the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Okay, action, again, you see the action here is very, very important. Now you see this muscle, the genioglossus muscle, it is the only muscle in the tongue which can depress the tongue, which can protrude the tongue. That means which helps in, like if you want to put your tongue outside your oral cavity, which muscle will get activated? The genioglossus. Okay, so it can depress the tongue, it can protrude the tongue, and it can also retract the tongue. Okay, to put your tongue outside your oral cavity, okay, which muscle is activated? Genioglossus. Again, to put your mouth inside the oral cavity, one of the muscle that will get activated is again the genioglossus. And to depress your tongue, that means to put your tongue on the floor of the oral cavity, again another this genioglossus. So as a result, you see the genioglossus muscle, it can depress the tongue, it can protrude the tongue, and it can also retract the tongue. So try to remember, this is the single lingual muscle, that is the tongue of muscles of the tongue are also called as lingual muscle. This is a single lingual muscle which can either depress or protrude or retract the tongue. That means when all the fibers of this muscle, both the muscle work together, it causes depression. When only the caudal fibers, that means the fibers which are directed caudally contracts, then it will protrude the tongue. When the middle fiber contracts, it will depress the tongue, and when the rostral fiber contracts, it will retract the tongue. Okay, so those are the 8 muscles that are related to mastication. Okay, so we classify them into 2 groups: masticatory muscles and muscles of the tongue or lingual muscles. Okay, so with that I finish today's class. So for your upcoming examination, these up to today's class will be included. Okay, so please go through the classes. I will send the notes to your CR. He will share with you. Okay, so for my part, up to muscles of tongue is the syllabus for the upcoming examination. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I will share the note with your CR. Okay, he will share it with you. Okay, then. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.